All right, Astros
I,
fan.
yeah, man. So here he goes, right? My Astros. What the hell? Um, I am not naive enough to think that the Astros are the only one doing this, correct? So, um, does it look really bad? Absolutely. Okay. But I did a post when this was coming out, and it was basically okay. So you take billionaire, millionaire owners, and then you take these GMs and front office people that are now Harvard and Yale, and they're analytics and they're computer science majors and they're all this, and you say, okay, you can use technology. You can have your iPads, you can do all this stuff, you can try to pick up signs on pictures, you can do all this, and you don't think that those competitive geniuses are going to figure out a way to do this, right? And so it was kind of like you should have seen this coming for
Sure.
me. Do I think the Astros went overboard? Absolutely. Okay, I'm not going to stand here and be like, oh, it's fine. There shouldn't be any repercussions. If you're taking real time video and running it through, okay, that's over the line.
Yeah.
However, I think the response to fire or to suspend Hinch for a year and to fire, the GM and stuff, I think that was a little overboard. I think that was a reaction that they felt they had to have because of the backlash. My personal opinion, it's a little overboard. Fine AJ Hinch $100,000 and Lunau, whatever you want to do, take some draft picks away,
Yeah.
that type of thing. Um, but you got the Yankees, you got Cora, you got Beltran with the Mets, you've got all this stuff that people are just expecting. And man, I think it's just overblown. I think it's a media circus now at this point. Um,
What do you think about
so
how the players handled it, as far as like all the so-called apologies and stuff?
I think players should just shut up. Just guys,
It's
go
bad.
out on the field, swing the bat. If you get plunked, you get plunked. Go down to first base. It was
Yeah.
something that shouldn't have happened. Y'all got caught. You got punished. Shut up and go play.
Yeah. Or if you're gonna talk, you need to you got to be sincere. You got to really, and that's the problem. They're not sincere because they don't really care. These are young kids. We see them as these elite athletes, but they're kids.
Yeah.
I would have been if I had made the big leagues. I'd be a kid at that age too because I was. I had
Yeah.
to grow up at 30. My career had to end before I could actually start growing up and get out of that like I'm a baseball player kind of living that lifestyle and doing what baseball players do, and get my ego right. I had to kind of come down to earth, and a lot of these guys aren't. They're not there. They've not that they've had it handed to them. They've earned where they're at, but the sense of their development as a human being is limiting, or
Yeah.
is not has not. They haven't grown as individuals, as humans, and how they conduct themselves. Um, you know, uh, the apology by the owner was bad. The apology by the everything was so scripted. With
I
Bregman and it's terrible, terrible because he was so arrogant in one of the previous like post game or conferences or whatever, and then you can see that later on he was so like, oh, the commissioner said that it's like, come on, dude. Like, you guys got to grow up a little bit. Getting caught, they're more just sorry they got caught, in my
well,
opinion. And
I think they're
yeah,
sorry they got caught, but at the same time, they Alex Bregman, and I just use him because his was atrocious to watch, and I love
ugh,
Alex Bregman as a player, man.
yeah,
That kid can play, but it was horrible to watch. The office, the front office, the PR, whoever wrote that stuff out and said, "Oh, go read this," you're setting them up
it's
for that.
terrible. Yeah,
You're setting them up. Like Alex Bregman would never on his own wake up
no,
and be like, you know what? I'm going to go do an apology today in front of cameras and everything else. That would
no.
have never happened.
The last thing they want to do.
So, and so you put that, like you said, on a young kid, and then it's scripted. He's literally having to read it or memorize it or whatever, and
Yeah,
it just came off so bad. I
so
mean,
bad.
it was horrible. And that's when I was like, as an Astros fan, that's when I was like,
Yeah,
Yeah, and it's like, can we please just make this go away? And
It's bad.
not
Yeah.
to make light of the situation, but it's away now. Nobody's talking about the Astros, but it's
Yeah.
and it's gonna keep coming. Whenever we do start playing baseball, this is not something that's gonna go away.
Yeah.
They're gonna hear it all year. If for I'm of the belief that these high level athletes are going to have a chip on their shoulder about yay high, and I still think the Astros are going to be very, very, very good this
Oh,
year.
yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of the other thing is that they're good already. They didn't have to cheat. And now what's funny is that the way they respond to all the criticism is, oh, we're going to shut them up. Where was that mentality when the idea of cheating came in?
Yeah,
Why couldn't
we
you have
don't.
said we don't need it? Why couldn't somebody step up and say we don't need it? Look at how much talent we have on this team. Why don't
Yeah,
we, like where now there's the fire to, oh, we're going to prove them wrong. Well, wait a minute. Do
yeah,
you guys hear yourselves?
yeah,
It's a joke. And again, that goes back to the personal development side. And it's a collective. It's a collective thing. That means all the way up through the organization, we have people that are thinking with like a very immature mentality.
yeah,
You have some of the best athletes in the world, best baseball players in the world on your team already, and now you want to cheat. But then you cheat and you win. That's the thing. You cheated and it worked. Like
yeah,
Barry Bonds and steroids. He cheated, obviously, and cheating has a new meaning now. So
yeah,
we got to kind of be careful how we use that. But he broke records. If he didn't break records, people wouldn't have an issue with him. Well, other than the fact of how he conducted himself, how he
yeah.
treated people. That was another issue. Maybe on that, do you want to add on that, like cheating? Let's say steroids versus the Astros scandal. What do you
Um,
think?
and
Better or worse? One's worse.
ooh, better or worse? That's a tough.
That's a good
Um,
question then.
man, that's a tough one. Um, I I liked watching Barry Bonds and Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire and all of those guys who were roiding. I enjoyed it. I'm a
Everybody
fan
did.
of
Yeah.
entertainment for me. I consider myself a true baseball fan. I've grown up watching this, but Major League Baseball is entertainment to me.
Yeah.
I do not take it personally
Yeah.
like, oh, you cheated me out of my money or
Sure.
my time or anything else. Like, yeah, man, you were doing something detrimental to your body and you knew you were doing wrong. That's on your conscience. But from my perspective, I was in front of the TV every night waiting on Sammy Sosa and Mark McGuire to hit a bomb.
Every other day they hit a home run. It was
Yeah.
like, no, you hear
And
the news. No way, they hit another one? Another
yeah,
one? It was
exactly.
nuts.
And Barry Bonds was when I was
Unbelievable.
growing up, and Barry Bonds in his roid prime you couldn't miss it.
No.
Like, I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anybody control a baseball game with 4 at bats in a game the way that guy did.
It was
Um,
incredible.
so for me, I think that if somebody put a gun to my head and said choose one, I think the Astros is probably worse.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but cheating is cheating if you want to think about it that way.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing because, like I said, so cheating typically, is going to mean that you have an advantage that other people do not have. So that's where there's like this gray area with the steroids. Potentially, now it doesn't mean that everybody was on steroids, but there were far more people. Like every team potentially had a handful of guys on steroids. The famous at bat with Bonds and Gagne
Yeah.
turning on 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Gagne was a what's the report called? What's the
Uh,
steroid report? What's it called? I forget. Anyways, his name came up on the steroids. So it was steroids versus steroids. So it just took the game itself to rose up the level of play, right? But it was potentially more even. Barry Bonds didn't know what was coming. Could you imagine if Barry Bonds knew what was coming? Looked like he knew what was coming. That's how good he was.
yeah.
Spitting on 90, 94-mile-an-hour sliders and turning on 101 in McCovey Cove.
Yeah.
Like just absolutely nuts. And then taking him
Yeah.
deep right center field.
asinine.
So
It's crazy.
in my opinion, there's a cheating. There were rules broken, but the rules were broken by a large number of people that you're not even aware of. So Barry Bonds broke records. But what about the guys that are just on a major league roster because they took steroids? See, that was where when I was playing, there were guys doing steroids in the dugout or in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Some of them didn't. Most of them did not make it to the big leagues. But some of those guys gained an edge just to get there. You know what I'm saying? So it's easy to put Barry Bonds in the spotlight because he was in the spotlight. But what about all those other guys taking up roster spots? Because I didn't take steroids. I refused. The opportunity was there, and I didn't do it.
And I know personally a couple guys that were drafted from my high school, and one or two of them took steroids in the minors, and one actually got caught and suspended and everything else. So I mean, it is happening on all levels, and for the longest time, it wasn't against the rules. That's the other thing. It wasn't written, and so people have that argument. And I just, man, I love the game of baseball, but I didn't take it personally, and I didn't feel like they were ripping anything from me. They entertained the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Do
exactly.
I know?
Yep.
And so,
I think with that point, with the entertainment, what game would you rather watch? Houston versus the Yankees, but the Houston, they know what pitch is coming, or would you rather see both teams on steroids playing a fair baseball game?
Yeah, both teams on steroids for sure.
Both teams on steroids. It's not even a question about it, because now every hit that the Astros would get, knowing what was coming, you'd be like, well, they knew what was coming.
Yeah.
It's just it takes the wow out of it. At least it would be an even keel if everybody was on steroids. So that's kind of where I stand. It's like, it's definitely cheating, but cheating has a new meaning now. You got to be careful to call Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, A-Rod cheaters when now we've got the Astros and other teams. Like you said, they're the team that got caught. They were the most obvious about it, and they got caught. But yeah, that's kind of where I stand on it. I think definitely this is worse than the steroids.